Hi, this is Narelle Shiel, and today I want to talk to you about the anatomy of our self-limiting stories that we tell ourselves. Okay, so this is a big topic, and it's what I often see in the online space referred to as self-sabotage. And look, to be honest with you, it's not a word I really like because sabotage implies you're pretty much deliberately trying to stuff yourself up. And I don't believe for a minute that people go out of their way to get in their own way. Usually what happens is a self-limiting story will come from a belief system that will live in our unconscious. And our unconscious mind will make up stories, sometimes based on reality and experience, sometimes based on stuff we learn, and sometimes based on stuff we're just afraid of, or it will base a story around our known vulnerabilities. So for me, for example, I tell myself stories about making video all the time. And this is my 6th attempt today to make this video. I've had sound issues and recording issues up the wazoo, and I could very easily go into a story about, well, it's just not meant to happen for me, right? So instead of going into that story, I am working with my computer and I'm troubleshooting the device and I'm trying to work through it. Quite often spiritual people will get into this frame of mind where they say, well, it's just not meant to happen. And in certain circumstances that may be true, but just be aware, and in many circumstances it might just be a story so that you avoid doing what you know you need to do to get the success that you want to get. So let's pick stories apart. So quite often stories we tell ourselves are based on a no. No, you couldn't possibly do that, and here's the reason X, Y, and Z. Or, you must stop doing something, or you must deprive yourself of something. Essentially, it goes into the whole no-based goal setting. And when we set goals based on a no, it feels like deprivation. Our inner child can have a real little tantrum because it's being told no yet again. This can be how we learnt about no as growing up as kids. Either we got told no excessively or we were never told no at all, so we don't actually know what it means. Either way, it can actually result in a real inability for the inner child to understand what no means and chuck a tantrum over the word no. So things that involve a no, for example, might be losing weight. And I know for a lot of women, that's a big, big thing. Now, losing weight often means we say no to things. We say no to eating certain things, no to sugar, no to the pleasantries of life. We say no to lots of things that we might otherwise enjoy. Chocolate, for example, the texture of good quality chocolate actually has a very similar mouthfeel to mother's milk, which is why chocolate, among other things, is considered very nurturing and why we often look for it when we feel like we need nurturing. So saying no to that is saying no to nurturing. So being aware of those things in ourselves enables us to make better choices. So if I feel like I need to be nurtured, maybe a warm bath with some nice oils and some nice candlelight might feel nurturing for me and negate the need to eat chocolate and therefore support my goal to lose weight. Okay, so really think about the no's that you're telling yourself, and are they stories? And then do we get into stories as to why we can't achieve the goal? The other thing that is often a player with self-limiting stories is the idea of fear and what are we afraid of would happen, and in particular if we're successful. So success for you in business, for example, might look like only having to work 4 hours a day and, then you'd have the other half of the day to do what you wanted, whether it was go shopping, hang out with your family, pick your kids up from school, whatever it is that, is important to you and why you have that goal. And what happens is if we don't actually know what we would do with that success, it's really hard to envision it. And if we can't envision it, then we can quite often get stuck telling ourselves why we need to work so hard. And if you're not doing 10 hours a day, then just you're a lazy git. So there can be a lot of that storytelling and self-flagellation around our goals if we're not clear on why we're doing what we're doing and what we would do with the success. So if my goal, for example, was to only work 4 hours a day, and I had another 4 hours a day that suddenly got freed up because I wasn't, working like a crazy lady, what would that mean to me? What would I do with those 4 hours? And if I don't know what I'm going to do with those 4 hours, it can create a lot of fear of the unknown. And when we start to get into that fear space, we will start to fill in the gaps to make ourselves feel okay. So I will start telling myself stories. I will start creating dramas about anything and everything that will keep me busy so I actually don't have to deal with 4 hours in my day with nothing to do. So as you can see, understanding what you would do with your success is really, really important to achieving it. So that's number 2. So write yourself down these things if this is an issue for you. What is the worst possible outcome? What is the best possible outcome? And what is the likely outcome? And what would that look like for you in day-to-day reality? The third thing is the reality of it. And sometimes I refer this as the anti-story, because the story that we tell ourselves keeps us in our existing reality. So if our existing reality is to work 10, 12 hours a day, and we keep telling ourselves a story about why we should be doing that and why we're so busy, and we're going to create dramas for ourselves and we're going to do unnecessary stuff, then what is the anti-story to that? What is the reality if we succeeded and we stopped with the stories and started doing what it was that we needed to do to create the success that we wanted? Many people don't know. One of the great things about vision boards, which you may have heard of, is that they help us create a picture of what our new reality might look like. So understanding that, you might like to journal about it rather than creating a vision board, that's cool. But understanding what life looks like outside of the story is super important, because otherwise we're going to stay stuck in the life that comes with the story. So I hope that's helped you. Maybe pick apart some of your own stories a bit better. So just to recap, goal setting, focus them in the positive. So frame them positively without using words like no, don't, stop. Really consider how your language is around those goals and try and keep it positive. The second thing is fear of success or fear of anything really. Look at that fear and pull it apart. Okay, so is the fear likely to happen or not likely to happen? And what is the worst thing that could happen if that fear came true? And what is the thing that, if you were wildly successful, what would that look like? And what is the likely outcome? So journal on those things. And the third thing is to look at what reality would be like. So visioning, if you were successful, what your day-to-day would be. What would you do? Where would you spend your time? What would that look like? What extra spare time would you have? What could you do with that? All of those things are really, really important so that we feel safe. And I think one of the big benefits of the stories that we tell ourselves is they create an environment in which we feel safe. We might not be happy, we might not be comfortable, we might not like where we are, and we might not be successful. But if we feel safe, that is an incredibly powerful motivator to keep us stuck in the story. So have a think on that. And if you are stuck with any stories, realising that sometimes they do live in our unconscious and we don't quite know what they are and they're a bit slippery. Some of the key things to look out for is misalignment between what you say and what you do, and what outcomes you're looking for. So if you are looking for X and you keep getting Y, then it's time to ask why and look at why there's that incongruence between your goal and your outcome. Saying one thing and doing another is a very similar thing. There's just not that alignment between what you're saying and what you're doing. So somewhere in your unconscious, there's probably a story that you're telling yourself around that. And if you can identify those stories, and actually say them out loud, you take their power away and you give power back to yourself. So reach out if you have any stories you're stuck with, or you know you're stuck and you just can't work out what the story is. I might be able to help with that. Leave your comments. Maybe you have worked out a real humdinger of a story you're telling yourself. Share with the group because it might actually help others too. So thanks for listening in today, and all the best with disentangling your stories and creating a better outcome for yourself. Bye for now.